Welcome to Scrolling to Death. Today, I am joined by Judy Rogg, an incredible advocate for kids' online safety who devastatingly lost her son, Erik, to the choking game. Today, Judy tells her story and educates parents on how we can protect our children from online harms like deadly challenges. Judy is a warrior in this fight, and I'm really looking forward to introducing her to you guys. This episode is sponsored by Bark Technologies. I'm truly grateful that these days we parents have safer device options for our children. That is the Bark phone. It was built for families who are looking to ramp up their child's online safety, protect them from deadly challenges. It has parental controls built in and allows us to manage their entire experience on their devices really easily. Let's get into my conversation with Judy Rogg. Okay, Judy, so let's jump in. Where are you coming to us from?
I am in Los Angeles, California.
Oh, you're not far from me. Have you always lived there?
No, I'm a native New Yorker,
Oh, yeah, you told me
but
that.
I've been out here for a very long time.
Wow. What brought
Since
you all the way across the country?
a combination of things, and
Mhm.
just there was really time for a change.
Yeah, definitely. Well, California
Time
is a
for a
nice change.
change.
Yeah. Did you feel the earthquake yesterday?
Oh my goodness, yes.
Yeah.
I was in the middle of a Pilates session,
Oh,
and my instructor freaked out. I had like straps on my feet with springs, and she
uh-huh.
just pulled my feet out of them and like, okay, are we gonna have to make a run for it or
Yeah.
what?
It went on
Yeah,
for a little while, didn't it?
I'm surprised you felt it down there because
I
it was up
know.
here in Highland Park.
All part of being
Yeah.
here in California.
Well, when I first moved out here a few months later, there was an
Uh-huh.
earthquake. I was in Venice. It was January 1st, actually.
Oh,
I want to
uh-huh.
say 1978,
Uh-huh.
and I was just paralyzed. And then I ran down to the beach. I was by the walkthroughs. I was living on the walkthroughs in Venice,
Oh,
and it was like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can stand this.
yeah. Oh my God, it was scary.
You know,
What was
hurricanes, tornadoes, snowstorms. That's what I grew up with.
See,
But
that stuff feels deadly to me. That's too scary for me.
but that, you prepare for. There's notice.
Right.
The
You're
thing about
right.
earthquakes is it's like there's no notice. It's suddenly, you're tootling along with your life and kaboom.
You are right. So, Judy, we got to meet in person a few weeks ago at an event you were at here in
Hmm.
Southern California. And I was really grateful to get to know you and chat for a bit. And then also now I'm excited to get to know your son, Erik. And so, can you start just by telling us about Erik? What was he into? What were his hobbies? I'd love to just get to know him.
Oh my goodness, Erik.
Hmm.
Erik was a force of nature. He still is a force of nature.
Hmm.
And he motivates me today still. I think if you go into child psychology sorts of things, I don't know if you've ever learned about something called a spirited child.
Hmm.
It's not
Hmm.
ADD, it's not ADHD, it's the executive who walks around with the phone on his ear rather than sitting down,
Hmm.
if you will.
Yeah.
He's doing something at the same time, multitasking.
Hmm.
Very, very smart, years beyond his age smart. He was a kid, he did stupid things, but, he was a very bright, perceptive little boy. He knew what he wanted. He
Hmm.
wanted to be of service at an early age, and I don't really know where he got this from. He really wanted to go into the military.
Huh.
And nobody in my family or his dad's family, I think his dad was in the army, but it wasn't something that was, like a big part of his life anymore, kind of a thing.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
he wanted to be of service, was really gearing towards that. At 11, he was corresponding with West Point's admissions department. He wanted seriously, he was emailing with them. He wanted to make sure that he was going to be able to meet all the physical requirements. 80 pounds soaking wet, could do a dozen pull-ups on a pull-up bar. He was just bright, inquisitive, helpful. He was a Boy Scout. He was a baseball player, avid baseball player.
Hmm.
And his dad was a big rifle guy, so he taught him how to shoot at an early age, which is not something I was particularly fond of because
Hmm.
that's not my upbringing. But, it was structured, and with the scouts, it was very structured. He excelled in school. He excelled in whatever he wanted to put his mind to. He was also very helpful. I was not married to his father, and we were good co parents, but it was him and me, or he and I. And cousins lived nearby, and it was like part of a team.
Mm-hmm.
He had chores that he did, and he had responsibilities, and he got rewarded for his responsibilities. Maybe in a lot of ways, he was kind of older than you would think, because, he had to pull his weight.
Yeah.
He had to pull his weight.
Mm-hmm.
I was a working mom. And
Mm-hmm.
instead of having, I mean, way when he was younger, I had a nanny, but we had nannies.
Mm.
And we would interview, like, each year when he was in like third, fourth, fifth grade, for after school, we would interview college kids usually,
Mm-hmm.
and he had some great role models in his life as a result of that, in addition to his dad, and in addition to my brother and his two cousins,
Mm-hmm.
one who was 18 years older than him and one who was just 4.5 years older, 5 years older than him.
Mm.
He got to travel a lot. Being a chronic native New Yorker, we'd go back east quite a bit. My aunt, who was like mom or grandma, was
Mm-hmm.
there, and his dad would take him on trips. He went on a cross country trip with his dad. I want to say he was about 8 years old. It was visiting Civil War, like Revolutionary War. That was like further back east, but Civil War part, places where there were battles and there were things like
Wow.
that, and just
Wow.
absolutely, loved it. And he was a history buff, a real history buff,
Mm.
and just absolutely enthralled with it. He loved to learn.
Mm.
He loved to do, he loved to learn. And he was also very sociable. And he was also, interestingly, he was not a kid who would be bullied. He was a kid who was very judicious of who he wanted in his life. It's like
Mm-hmm.
kids wanted him, as opposed to necessarily he wanting all of the kids who wanted him in their
Mm.
groups or in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of like how he was and who he was.
Yeah.
He still is. I keep thinking about it. Somehow I can't really believe that he's not here.
Yeah. Thank you, Judy. He sounds amazing. There's so many, I always find little similarities when I hear about these children. And Erik sounds a lot like my 7-year-old. My 7-year-old will be telling me something and just walking in circles while he's telling me he's got to move and he's got to do something
Right, right,
constantly.
right.
Yeah. Judy, can you share what happened to Erik in April of 2010 when he was in just sixth grade?
Hmm. What happened to Eric was every parent's worst nightmare. I was going to have actually knee surgery in a few weeks. We had been figuring it all out. He was going
Mm-hmm.
to stay with his cousins who were a few blocks away. I had just figured out a place where I could rehab for a little bit that was close by. This was in Santa Monica, California.
Mm-hmm.
He had just come back from the rifle weekend with the scouts. He earned his badge, and I asked him. It was so funny when I asked him about it. He said, "Well, they tell me I did, but rather than having nice group of like shots right near each other, I kept blowing through the same hole."
Mm.
You know, it's
That's
like,
good.
duh. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. He's a
Yeah.
bit of a perfectionist like I am. But
Mm-hmm.
he got the Senior Patrol Award that Monday evening at Scouts for outstanding excellence for that weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And on the way home in the car, he just seemed exceptionally tired. And I didn't know if something was off. But you learn to pick your battles. You're a parent and you can't pick you've got to learn to
Yep.
pick your battles.
Yep.
And I asked him in the car, I said, "Are you okay? Or are you just really tired?" He goes, "I'm just really tired, Mom." And I thought, okay, Judy, don't push
Yeah.
anything.
And if you push,
Um,
sometimes they just shut down more. I'm
yeah,
learning.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. He woke up Tuesday morning for school, wide eyed, ready to go. Everything was great. He was supposed to have baseball practice, private practice with another teammate. But, it was raining, which is odd in April still in
Mm-hmm.
LA, on and off. And
Mm-hmm.
so he was going to call me. I was going to work, and he was going to call me when he got home and let me know which, what, and where for. And I was going to be in meetings most of the day, and I get out of my meetings. It's like 4:30ish, and there were a couple of messages on my phone. One was from the friend who said the ground's too wet, so it was canceled, and then one from him saying he was a little out of breath because it's kind of like uphill 6 blocks home from school,
Mm-hmm.
and he has just got home. I'm going to call them right now, find out if we're going to practice or not.
Mm-hmm.
And then I called him and I tried to sell. He had a cell with very limited usage on it. because it was in particular for, you know, us to be able to keep in touch with each other.
Yeah.
So I tried to sell, and I tried the landline, and I tried the cell, tried the landline, and usually I'll almost immediately get a call back. Sorry, mom, I was in the bathroom, something like that. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you like, you know, sorry, I was just, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
And I tried it twice, and I didn't get anything. And I just picked up my keys and I left. I lived about 7 minutes by car from where I was working. We lived there in an apartment nearby, and I just knew something wasn't right.
Mm.
And I walked in, and I started a 2 bedroom apartment. It's not a large space. And I'm kind of hollering, you know, Eric, you know, and I don't want to go into the gruesomeness of
No.
finding him,
No.
but
Don't.
I just, I'm short. And I'm, Eric and I were about the same height at that point, which is like 5 feet, 5'1". You know,
Mm-hmm.
for me, that's it. For him, he would have sprouted up way taller.
Mm-hmm.
And I just went to the door of my apartment and I hollered. And my neighbor downstairs, who was a plumber, he's a big kind of burly guy, came flying up the stairs with a baseball bat because he didn't know, you know, it was something, you know, what was going on.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know that he knew CPR. And the thing about this quote unquote game is that you're not suspended, you're not hanging, you're in contact with the floor, and you're either kneeling, sitting, or standing.
Mm-hmm.
But being that I was as short as him or as tall as him, I couldn't do that. So my neighbor Jeff had him down in a matter of minutes and was doing CPR, and his wife came up and called 911. I mean, just it was holy pandemonium, and
Yeah.
the ambulance was there within a couple of minutes, and he was whisked off to the hospital. And it was about, I want to say about an hour plus, and they got his heart restarted. You know,
Mm.
and on a logical level, you know, but with
Yeah.
kids, they go the extra distance, and they transferred him up to UCLA's pediatric intensive care unit, and we spent the night on life support. But, you know, over the night, people were coming in, you know, like one doctor said, you know, usually if they're not medicated, which he wasn't, there's some sort of like muscle twitching, and there was nothing. And
Mm.
somebody came in to clean the tube, the breathing tube, and said, usually there's a gag reflex. They were just trying to prepare me,
Yeah.
you know, gently. And when the police came up that evening, his dad was there already. My brother was, our whole family was there. And police came up and they said, I mean, we knew Eric was like the furthest thing from suicidal, you know, in
Right. Yeah.
history. They said this wasn't a suicide attempt. This was the choking game. And
Had
we
you heard
looked
of
at,
that before?
no,
No.
we looked at the police and the detective, and we said, what are you talking about? And they started explaining it, and we were just like, nah, he was too smart to do something that's stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And they were pretty adamant, but the very long and short was the 24 hours passed, and, you know, he had no brain activity. So, which in a sense was a blessing, because if there had been brain activity, the question would have been, do we keep him alive on life supports forever, how many years or decades, or do we let him pass peacefully?
Yeah.
And because he wasn't coming back, that was for sure, one way or
Mm-hmm.
the other. You know, he was so larger than life. My brother, I remember saying at one point, you know, even half of Eric is more than most
Mm-hmm.
kids are, you know.
Yeah.
And but I just, you know, you just sort of know. And
Mm-hmm.
there was no brain activity, so the decision was made for us. And then what was heartbreaking about my super duper healthy little kid was that they had pumped so much medication into him that his organs were not viable for donation,
Oh.
which broke
Oh.
my heart on so
Yeah.
many levels.
Mm-hmm.
But what they did end up doing was they harvested bone and tissue ligaments for,
Mm-hmm.
you know, people who needed those kinds of things. And after, you know, there was talk for a while that maybe his eyes or his corneas could be saved for transplant,
Mm-hmm.
but they couldn't, you know, his
Mm.
beautiful blue eyes. And the
I
very
know.
long and short over the
Yeah.
years was there was over 160 people that amount of tissue and ligament helped.
Oh my
And I
gosh.
actually got
Judy.
two, no, I'm serious. I actually, during
Wow.
that time, I got two thank you notes from two recipients. It's
Wow.
not like with major organ recipients where you get to meet people and you get to follow with their lives.
Mm-hmm.
These remained anonymous. There was no way to reach. I tried. There was no way to reach back out to them.
Mm-hmm.
This my little pint-sized guy there was able to help that many people. It was
That's so
just
nice. Yeah.
really amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And then we still really believed it was an accident of some
Mm-hmm.
sort. And
Mm-hmm.
all we were saying publicly was tragic accident.
Mm-hmm.
And sometime during that week, I got a call from the mother of a teammate of his. And this other boy happened to be in that school. And she called and said, "Don't hang up. I've got information."
Mm-hmm.
And it turned out, this was somewhere in the first week, it turned out that he had been seen on school grounds with another kid showing themselves how to choke themselves or choke each other. And then I got really angry. I knew the police were right. I got really ticked. And the police talked to the friend, and and then I knew. Then I knew. I still didn't know what I was going to do,
Mm-hmm.
but I knew I needed to do something. And it took me a couple of months to be able to write to the superintendent of the school district and ask for a meeting. And then he got back to me right away. The school psychologist, the principal was there, and the superintendent, and they said, we're not going to use any of the material that's out there because it's educational material because it's very graphic. But if you want to create something that's non-graphic and skills based, we'll use it.
Yeah. Wow.
They didn't know who they were dealing with. They really did not know who they were dealing with. And
Uh-huh.
someone many years back, it's not a very pretty depiction, but
Mm-hmm.
when I get onto something, I'm pretty tenacious. And this guy had said to me once along the line, he goes, "Ma'am, you're like a pit bull with a pork chop bone. You're not going to let go till you're done." And
Mm-hmm.
he's right. It's like if
Mm-hmm.
I need to do something, it's going to, I'm not going to let go until I feel satisfied about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we worked with people at Lincoln. We worked with the vice principal and the district psychologist and a number of people and created what became the video of our educational program. And his sixth grade math teacher, who I'm still in touch with and meet with for several times a year for coffee, and
No.
to this day, she's a
Mm-hmm.
doll. She volunteered to do it in her class
Mm-hmm.
as a pilot. It was just at that point a video and a bunch of questions.
Mm-hmm.
It was basically a PowerPoint made into a video and some questions.
Mm-hmm.
It's very powerful. And so the following year, we were going to deploy it for seventh and eighth graders at their alternative middle school. And we were getting ready to rock and roll. And one parent whose child was in a much younger grade got vocal about it, and the whole thing got shut down.
Oh, yeah.
And
What
it
was the
was like,
concern that like if they see something like this, they're gonna just
if
gonna make them
it's
try it?
it's the old, it's true with drugs, alcohol, smoking, sex. If we tell them, they might try it. The
Right. So
old
let's just never introduce it to them, and then they're gonna see it
right,
online,
right.
or their friends gonna tell them about it, and they don't know not to do it.
Exactly, exactly. They don't know what it can do.
Yeah.
And what we ended up creating was something skills based and non graphic. It's just really evolved over time. I was also involved with the parent group at that point
Mm-hmm.
around this particular parents who had lost kids to this pass out games. A very long and short story in Iron County, Utah, which was then only around 30,000 people. There had been between 2008 and 2013 four adolescent deaths due to this. Out of their 10, then at that point in time, 10 adolescent deaths in that time frame, four of them were from the choking game.
How many
How many
parents have you
parents?
met that have lost a child to the choking
I have
challenge or whatever you
lost
call it?
countless numbers of parents. We have a private online group, mostly parents, a few friends or family members. And I want to say we have about 220 members. And that's the tip of the iceberg.
I want to talk about the timeline here because 2010, do you think Erik or one of his friends saw it online, or was it too early to be exposed to that online and they just heard about it from somebody? Did you ever find out?
What we found out was there was nothing forensic on any of his computer our computers or phones, because they took
Okay.
everything to do forensics on.
Mm-hmm.
Likely that the other kid involved that he was seen with showed him.
Okay.
And in talking to other kids in that
Mm-hmm.
sixth grade class
Mm-hmm.
over the years, was that the kids were chattering choking game while the parents were chattering cyber suicide. In fact, the reason I ended up going public, I never had any intention or any thought about this, is that Erik died 3 weeks after the girl in Massachusetts who was cyberbullied. It was also in 2010, who
Mm-hmm.
was viciously cyberbullied into suicide. And that's like the first case of that came forward in the news as a huge thing. Somewhere in that first week, I get a call from the detective saying this reporter is hearing all this chatter from parents that Erik was cyberbullied into suicide. Do you want to go forward with the truth? Are you
Mm-hmm.
willing to do that? I didn't even ask anybody else. I just said yes. And
Yeah.
40 minutes later, it was on the local news.
Wow.
That's
Judy.
how it went forward. That's how it went public. It was even before we had the memorial service for him.
Wow.
Yeah, it just was like kaboom.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It was just, there wasn't a question in my mind because we know he wasn't bullied. We know he wasn't cyberbullied.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We know absolutely truthfully. We never identified the boy.
Hmm.
The kids who had been coming forward, sort of talking about it, kind of like they didn't want to come forward and say.
These kids don't understand at these ages the ramifications of things like
They
that. They
don't.
just think that it would be funny or fun or impress their friends. And this has all only gotten more dangerous with social media involved. So the choking challenge, the choking game was already a threat to children's lives long before social media. So Erik passed in 2010. 2009, Facebook launched. From what you've seen now, learning all about, I mean, maybe knowing more than anybody about this issue and meeting hundreds of other parents who've experienced this, how do you feel that social media has instigated, amplified dangerous challenges like this one?
It's just exploded it.
Mm-hmm.
It's truly just exploded it. I mean, things like TikTok that has a for you section, that challenges are being plopped into for you sections, that I
Mm-hmm.
know kids who have died that way. This was recommended for you, and they try it and they die.
They didn't seek it out. It was recommended by
Nope.
the platform. There's
Recommended by the
gotta,
platform.
and there's no liability there.
Nope. Nope. At that point, I mean, up until the whistleblowers kept Frances Haugen, and that all happened during,
Mm-hmm.
like in the middle of the pandemic. And we had no idea that algorithms were determining what all of us looked at.
Mm-hmm.
We had no idea whatsoever.
Can you tell me if social media companies know that this content is on their platform? Do you feel that
I
they know
can't
it?
imagine that they don't.
Okay.
If they
And
monitor like they say they do, and
mm-hmm.
I know I'm not one of the parents that reports videos, because
Mm-hmm.
to me it just keeps, when I watch these videos, they just keep reactivating my PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
So for me it's just too hard. Other people are more comfortable with it. They keep reporting videos over and over and over, and nothing gets taken down.
Correct. Right.
They're
That's
aware.
really
They're
important.
aware.
Yeah. Okay. And they don't take it down from what I'm gathering because it brings in a lot of engagement and therefore profits for the platforms. Would you agree?
One would assume, absolutely. Money, money,
Mm-hmm.
money. That's what they do. The way I phrase it when I train parents, eyes on screen equals money in their pocket. Even
Mm-hmm.
if you're not buying anything, eyeballs on screen equals money in their pocket.
No matter how it makes the kid feel or what it makes the kid do.
And they don't
Yeah.
care if it's kids or grown-ups.
Yeah.
Eyeballs on screen of any age.
For parents for today, what do they need to know about this threat to keep their kids away from it? Is there a conversation to have or parental controls to put on, or what do you recommend for parents to do today?
Very good question. A lot of things. First of all, it's really important to understand that no
Mm-hmm.
matter how smart your kid is, their brains are not fully developed yet.
Yeah.
So
Right.
their ability to think through all of the potential consequences of an action
Mm-hmm.
is not yet fully developed. This is one of the things that I wish I really understood when Erik was still alive. It might have helped me save from him from things I don't know, but I like to think so. And because of that, parents will say to kids, "What were you thinking?" I'm sure you said
Mhm.
it. I know I said it.
Right.
And the truth
Mhm.
is they weren't thinking. They were just reacting
Yeah.
because their executive functioning is
Mhm.
not on board fully yet. It's better at 15 than at 12. It's better at 18 than at 15. But it's about 25 years of age that it fully comes on board. And
Mhm.
some newer studies are showing that it's about 30. It's a very risky time. They need to have conversations. They also need to stop allowing their kids to have their devices in a private place like their room with the door closed.
Mhm.
That's something that I don't know, intuitively we never did. But
Mhm.
he had time by himself after school. I tell parents the earlier you start conversations with your kids, the better,
Mhm.
so that they feel they can come to you. If you're not sure how to start something, you can put it in the third person, like, I hear some stuff about such and such, and I
Mhm.
don't know if it's something you or your friends have heard about.
Mhm.
Ways to, there are gentle ways to get into conversations. But the most important thing also, most parents are tremendously busy. We're working, we're doing this, that, we've got 15 things we're juggling.
Mhm.
Make space and time for your kid to come to you,
Mhm.
for your kid to be able to come to you and talk. And don't shut them down. And if you're in the middle of something, say, I want to talk with you about, what I let's can we do it in an hour?
Mhm.
Can we do it in 15 minutes? Let me just finish this up. That's really the most important thing. Keep the lines of communication open at a very early age, as
Mhm.
early as you can. Respect where they're at. If you don't respect where they're at, they're not going to respect what you have to say.
Great.
It's good to know their friends and their friends' parents, and to make sure to point out sometimes, it's not that you don't want them to hang out with their friends, but if you notice there are different value sets, reiterate what your value sets are and say,
Mhm.
they may do this in their home, but
Mhm.
that's not something we do in ours. And, I just
Mhm.
want you to be aware of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the biggest difference nowadays from home to home is how devices are engaged with. And a lot of parents will give into that. My friend gets to go on his gaming platform and go use his phone all he wants. And it's okay as a parent to say, we do things differently here.
Exactly. We have different values here than that.
Mhm. Yeah.
And then you need to sort of model it too, because if you're on your
Mm.
phone, if you're saying, we have different values here, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? I,
Yeah.
I mean, you have to model your behavior,
Right. Right.
and you have to modify your behavior. It's okay to say, I don't have the answer to that. That's a really good question.
Hmm.
Let's try and find out together.
Hmm.
Look things up together, do things together, be active. I remember even way, way back, when he was little, he's watching, like, the Rugrats,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
we're talking really little.
Yeah.
And I'd say stuff to him like, I don't like Angelica because she's being mean to the other kids.
Hmm. Hmm.
And these like crazy shows. One thing I noticed in a lot of the shows that were for like tweens at that point, Drake and
Hmm.
Josh, where are the parents?
Hmm.
The parents have
Right.
become comic sidekicks.
Yeah. Wow.
And
Hmm.
I mean, I bring that up to them. And I also show him old shows that I grew up with, as,
Hmm.
cheesy as they were back then. We went way back. I mean, we even would watch like Abbott and Costello and stuff like that.
Hmm.
He loved the old stuff, and so did I. But,
Yeah.
I mean, at the time, this was before the Cosby stuff, and Cosby
Hmm.
Show was a good model of parenting.
Yeah.
But there were parents, there were adults around.
And I think modeling that yourself as a parent, if you're lucky enough to still have parents that are here with us, let your kids see you as the parent, calling your
Hmm.
parent to ask them a question and get advice or
Exactly.
figure something out with you. I think that's a great reminder, too. Pausing here to talk to you about a tool that can help protect your child from online harms like the choking game. Bark Technologies has created a phone for kids, a safe phone that goes completely beyond screen time monitoring. It uses advanced AI to scan text messages, social media, images, videos, and even audio for threats like online challenges and drug content, cyberbullying, even child sexual abuse material. What your children are getting access to through their phones is worrisome. but tools like Bark can give us peace of mind. So the Bark phone is the most customizable kids phone. It has text and social media monitoring built into it. The kids cannot turn it off, and it is the safest option for kids. But if you are going to go with an iPhone or an Android, please consider layering on the Bark parental monitoring app. It uses high-tech AI to scan their activities for harmful content, allows you to create screen time schedules, block certain websites and apps, and a ton more. Back to my conversation with Judy. I want to ask you just one more thing about social media. And you've met a lot of incredible parents and people on this journey, and other parents who've seen their children harmed by social media's design or functionality.
Destroyed by social media, yeah.
Right. And in all different ways, not just through challenges. So when it comes to social media and parents now who are trying to decide when and how to give their children access, what would you advise those parents?
Be cautious, be open, look at it together with them, watch it together with them. It's okay to monitor their social media, it's
Mm-hmm.
okay to monitor what they do. There seems to be a level of the feeling of entitlement going around that a lot of parents nowadays seem to have acquiesced to,
Mm-hmm.
that, to give your kids a lot of space and privacy.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I mean, yes, they need their privacy, but not with this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Again, we had it all in a public space.
Right.
You
Exactly.
know, if I had known about this, he would have known about it. And I can pretty much guarantee you he'd be as much of an advocate right now as I am.
I completely agree.
There's no way to know what you don't know most of the time,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately.
Yes. And so one thing I talk about a lot is I think parents are doing their best. They protect their children
Sure,
from known threats, right? But if parents don't know that on their phone are deadly challenges and predators or drug dealers, they don't know to protect them from that. And so that's the
exactly.
whole goal of this podcast is to spread awareness of the harms that are there so that we can protect them, not so we can keep them away from it forever, but so we can prepare them and
Sure,
protect them, right?
absolutely. Open
And
conversations,
yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
lots of them, not just
Mm-hmm.
one, and figure you did your diligence.
Right. And even then, when you have all the open conversations and you have monitoring, protect, and you do everything to protect them, they can still get access to unsafe things on their phone. This is because the platforms are built to be addictive and harmful and prioritize
Hmm.
harmful content to our children. So parents need help through the form of federal legislation that will force the platforms to be safer. So
Absolutely.
tell me about the Kids Online Safety Act. Why do you feel like COSA is an important bill that needs to be passed and signed into law this year?
Something has to happen. Is it perfect? No, but it's a start in the right
Yeah,
direction.
yeah.
That's the most important piece of it.
Mm-hmm.
This is the only industry that is not controlled by any kind of regulation whatsoever.
Yes,
Back
right.
in the 1990s, there were laws in place to try and encourage internet commerce as a new form of business, so to speak. And those laws have become a shield
Mm-hmm.
for the social media companies to hide behind. Basically, you guys are just a giant bulletin board. You're not responsible for anything that people put up there.
Right.
That's basically been what's happened.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there has to be some responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
There has to be some responsibility. I mean, eventually, big tobacco was reined in with some regulations.
Yep.
I mean, when I was growing up, cigarettes commercials were all over the internet. Not the
Mm-hmm.
internet, TV and
Yeah.
billboards,
Yeah.
because I'm pre-internet age. But back then, when I was growing up, I remember when they mandated seatbelts finally,
Mm-hmm.
and car seats and
Right.
things like that. You wouldn't dream of putting your kid in the car without a car seat nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah. That's insane
I
to think
do.
that's insane to think now in my view, right? That you would ever think about putting your kid in the car without a car seat, not in a car
Right.
seat. And I hope that in a few years, we're going to look back and say that is insane that we would allow kids to have phones at school, or that's insane that we would let them have a phone in their bedroom with the door closed at night. Like
Yeah.
that's not okay. And
It's totally not okay.
no, it's not safe.
No, it's totally not okay.
The stress that puts on these kids. I mean, a mom told me over the weekend that she had made the mistake of letting her oldest daughter, have a phone, and since has course corrected, but her daughter would stay up late at night with her full makeup and hair and just stay up
Oh
so
my
late.
God.
She was expecting a Snapchat back, and she wanted to be fully cute for her response. And it breaks my heart that these kids feel that stress and feel the pressure and the anxiety, the pressure to be social through these social media sites in the middle of the night. Like, go to sleep.
You don't want your kids to be lying, but this is the time it's okay to do a white lie and say, my parents said I can't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't want to get
put it on
grounded.
me. Yeah.
Put it on me. Put it on your
Yeah,
parents, kids.
totally.
Put it on your parents,
Mm-hmm.
and parents tell your kids, it's okay to tell your friends, my mom won't let me. My
Yeah.
dad won't let me. I will get grounded from here to next year.
Yeah. Because if
Kids
it's a
crave boundaries more than we think they do.
Totally agree. And for me, if it's a choice between they feel left out or they're being harmed on social media, like, I'm sorry, but they're going to feel left out. And I'm going to do my best to find other families who feel the same way and can also
Mm-hmm.
have the kids communicate on text message or just a safer space that's not feeding them algorithmic content that harms them. But I hope that this year the Kids Online Safety Act passes through the House. It already passed through the Senate, 91 to 3.
Yay.
Yay. We need parents to call their representatives in the House. So you go to house.gov,
Absolutely.
type in your zip code, find out who your rep is. If you don't know, give them a call. Say, please co-sponsor KOSA, KOSA, Kids Online Safety Act.
Absolutely.
And it's when they're back from recess in September, hopefully it will go for a vote and be passed. And then the president will need to sign it. And we need it to happen now before an election and things get shaken up. Yeah.
It was killing me that I couldn't go to Washington at the
I know.
for the Senate vote. I medical stuff, but
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm well and rip and ready and raring to go when we do the House.
Me
So
too. I'll be
I'm
there.
excited about it.
This legislative process can be confusing, and I'm just learning as well with parents who
Sure.
are listening. But what we need to know is that it passed bipartisan in the Senate, 91 to 3. It will save children's lives. We have to contact our district representatives.
Absolutely.
Also, big tech is spending a lot of money to try to convince people that it will inhibit free speech and that it's about content and not the product design. It's not true. And they're doing this because when KOSA passes, they're going to make less money and they're going to have some liability on them.
Exactly. So they'll make $1 billion less than their 10 billion or 12 billion or
They're all
whatever
right.
it is.
They'll be okay.
They'll still
Right.
be fine. They'll still
Yeah.
have more money than they'll know what to do with. A year ago,
Mm-hmm.
or so, California passed and Governor Newsom signed the Kids Age Appropriate Design Bill,
Correct.
which modeled the laws that are in effect in England and working. It's now mired in the court with a conglomerate of big tech is suing the state of California for First Amendment infringement and this that and the other thing. I'm not going to say if, when KOSA gets passed, even when that happens,
They'll sue.
it's still going to be a long road.
Yeah.
It's still going to be a long road because they're going to try and fight this vehemently.
Yep. Fight against children's safety.
It's so sad. And what's interesting is these techs, the CEOs of these big tech companies, their kids go to schools where they're not allowed to have phones.
Ding, ding, ding.
Ding,
It's
ding,
just
exactly. Ding, ding, ding.
Oh
Duh.
my gosh. I know. And it's sad, but we have to maintain hope through joining together as parents and standing up for our children. And
we have to.
Yeah. And it's going to be a long fight. But look at you, Judy. You've been fighting for 14 years for, to save children. And there are countless children that you have saved by just your educational program. And,
thank you.
And so you have Erik's, oh gosh, Judy. So you have Erik's Cause at ericscause.org, and you have your training program. Is there anything, you kind of mentioned it already throughout the conversation, but is there anything else listeners should know about your organization?
All services and use of everything is entirely free of charge. There is no charge to a school. There is no charge to a community group. We love it to be part of school curricula, but we've done things with the Scouts where troops have invited us in. Community groups have put together things. It doesn't need to be a school function if that's not possible. In fact, that very school that we got shut out of in Santa Monica, 5 years later, I get an email from the principal saying, We just caught a half a dozen girls playing this on school grounds. We need to do something. And she
Whoa.
got permission from the district
Mm-hmm.
to do a parent kid evening.
It's
It's
so important to be proactive about this. And I know schools are hesitant to introduce these topics to children with the thought that
totally.
if we introduce it to them, they're going to do it. But we have to introduce it to them and tell them why they shouldn't do it and educate them on the stats and the safety procedures, parents and students. If you're a school, please reach out to Judy at ericscause.org. But if you're a parent, recommend her training program to your school. And I'm going to do that. And I'm probably
And
going to get shut down because they are very
of
conservative with
course,
things like this, but I'm going to try.
no, I appreciate that. And also, even if you're a parent, feel free to please reach out to me
Mm-hmm.
and I can help you try and come up with a way to strategize how to do it. Again, it's
Good.
entirely free of charge. It helps kids understand where they are in their brain development
Mm-hmm.
and why it's hard for them to make good decisions without a trusted adult.
Mm-hmm.
It's non-graphic, it's not violent, it's skills based,
Okay.
and it's got some humor to it, and
Yeah.
it engages kids in the process.
Mm-hmm. Because parents need help and we don't know how to tackle
Totally,
these
totally,
issues.
parents need help.
But yeah, I know a lot of parents' voices coming together and asking for things like this can make a difference
Yeah,
in schools. And Judy, just thank you for your tireless advocacy and thank you for what you do to save children's lives and educate them and pushing for
thank you.
change. And we really appreciate all that you do.
I'll tell you, thank you so much. And thank you for what you're doing to help educate parents. All of us, all of the parents I know, we all wish we never had met each other and we have our kiddos back.
Yeah.
And just we're going on with our lives. Parent advocates that I've met are incredible people.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way I could have ever done this on my own. I
Mm-hmm.
was prompted by a lot of anger, at
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
first. And it's some amazing people around. When at the conference that you and I met at, somebody
Mm-hmm.
came by and said, "I really like that line. We have a tagline, and it's even smart, strong kids can make dumb choices with deadly
Yes. I
consequences."
like that as well. Yeah.
You know who created that line? A
Who?
12-year-old boy,
Oh.
a friend of Eric's, who I
Oh.
still see from time to time today. He's 26 now.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, when I was getting ready to go meet with the principal, I was
Mm-hmm.
talking with him a day or two before, and he goes, "Let them know that even smart, strong kids can make dumb choices with deadly consequences."
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That came out of the mouth of a 12-year-old. It's a wild west jungle out there.
Yeah. And don't think not my kid, because
No,
like you said, smart kids can make bad decisions. And I don't want parents to be afraid. I want them to feel empowered
no,
to educate themselves and have conversations proactively with our children, right?
exactly.
And that is why we're here. So, Judy, thank you so much for this conversation. I really
Thank
appreciate
you,
everything
Nikki.
you do.
Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome.